coming up in Down Under EV Adventures. It's my new EV, the journey there, and what I finally chose. Let's have a look. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Great to have you with me. And we're going to have a look at the journey to my new EV. Going to go through very briefly some of the cars which we looked at and how I got to my final decision on it. Now, of course, I don't have the Atto 3 any longer because I traded the car in. And for those of you who are new to the channel, I bought this car back in 2023 as a demo model with a few months on it. So I had the car for just over 18 months, and yeah, I miss those dragon scales already. But seriously, it was a great car and I certainly would still recommend it to people. It was just that I needed an all-wheel drive for towing and for better performance off-road, and I also wanted something with a slightly better range. And for those of you who are worried, this doesn't mean it's the end of Atto 3 information and news, because my wife still has her Atto 3, the green machine. And I actually drive her car at least 2 or 3 times a week. So I still right on top of everything to do with the Atto, and there will still be tests and trips that we do with her car. So yeah, not to worry. For those of you who are still Atto 3 owners, there'll be still plenty of news about the Atto 3. And as usual with most of my episodes, just skip ahead to whatever chapter interests you. Anyway, let's go to the journey, which begins in Germany last year. So my wife and I went to Europe last year for a great holiday. I might add, we had a lot of fantastic times, especially in Germany and Denmark. But in Germany we hired an EV, and the vehicle in question that we hired was a Renault Megane E-Tech electric. And it was probably around this time that I was starting to think about upgrading to a new EV, and this car sort of got me thinking along the track of what I should be looking for in a car. Now unfortunately the Renault is only a front wheel drive, and it didn't really offer much improvement in terms of range. So it's got a 60 kilowatt battery, and although we really enjoyed renting the car, it certainly had some zippy performance, and it was large enough for the 3 of us traveling. So it was me, my wife and my wife's sister traveling. It was a great car to rent. It wasn't really a serious contender, being just of course that front wheel drive that it is. So moving on. Now later on in the year we rented another car. So this was in Perth, and we rented the 310 kilowatt all-wheel drive Polestar 2. Now this was the second time we'd rented a Polestar, but the first time we'd rented the all-wheel drive version, and not quite the performance version. I think that has 330 or 340 kilowatts, but still, this car has some serious power. Great performance vehicle. Ultimately though, we decided not to buy a Polestar 2, as much as we do like the car, the quality and so on, simply because the roofline is too low for us. Now late last year we had the opportunity to visit the relatively new Tesla showroom in O'Connor, which is a suburb of Perth, and we test drove the long-range dual-motor version, which has some quite good performance. It's not the performance version of Tesla, that car's over $90,000. This car's sort of like high 70s at the time. Now the Teslas are very nice and spacious, the Model Y is anyway, and it was very comfortable, and it drove beautifully with great acceleration. And the quality wasn't too bad, but ultimately neither my wife or I enjoyed doing everything through the touchscreen. Even things like the glove box, it doesn't even have a glove box button, which we just found a bit stupid. So, and certainly there's a lot going on with Tesla, and even Tesla Ys have become very common as well. For all of those reasons, it made the Tesla Y go straight off our list. So earlier this year, after we got back from our Easter holiday in South Australia, we were in Perth, and this was just a couple of months really after the Sealion had been released in Australia. And we wanted to get into a performance version, but I don't know why, but it wasn't available, and we got into a premium version which was fine because I wanted to see just what sort of quality and features the Sealion had. And I have to say we were very impressed. It seemed very familiar to us, the software. Pretty much liked everything about the car except for the fact that it wasn't an all-wheel drive. It was still a great car, and I can see why this car has become very popular, and it's developing into one of BYD's best models here in Australia. Ultimately though, we wanted to get into performance, and we took the premium version off the list. If I didn't have to tow though, I would say I would be very happy to have a car like this. I think the quality was excellent and definitely has some physical buttons, which is good. So a fantastic car, but it just made us really hungry to get into the performance version of it. Now the next car that I drove was the BMW iX3, which was another rental, and of course this was just the last episode I did on the channel. It took me a while to get around to finally finishing the episode, and as I told everyone in that episode, this is just a rear-wheel drive, and I have to say it was a fairly unimpressive EV overall, so it has some software issues, although it is nice and spacious, I'll say that about it. Now the one car I was looking forward to driving even more than any other car, even more than the BYD, was the Kia EV5. Now, I like what Kia's doing as a company. They've got some nice looking cars, and I was lucky enough to be lent one by the dealer for an entire day, which was great because I had a good chance to test it out. And I did love the way it drove. It's got a great size battery pack, 88 kilowatts, a good range, and it looks pretty good, I think. However, it's got some serious problems with safety systems and warnings going off. It's a very, very bingy bongy car, very annoying. And they've also got some touchscreen issues. So the air conditioning controls aren't that useful really. And there's also some shortcut buttons which you keep accidentally knocking every time you use the touchscreen, which is fairly small. Ultimately, it proved to be quite a disappointing EV choice. If they can get those safety systems down pat, I think they'd have a brilliant car, and I would consider buying one in the future. But as it was, we both decided no, we could not live with that. And around about 2 months ago, we finally got into the Sealion 7 performance model. Once again, it seemed very familiar to us, and definitely the performance model has all the performance that you would really need in a car with that sub 5 second 0 to 100, a good towing performance, so it would make a good towing car. In fact, it would make a good touring car too. So once again, we were pretty much blown away by the comfort, the features, and of course the physical buttons, which I think make all the difference when you're driving a car. So a great car, and we were extremely impressed with it. Probably the most impressed so far out of all the cars that we saw, so pretty much it shot straight to the top of our list of which cars we wanted to buy. And it was pretty hard to find too much wrong with the car, to be honest. There wasn't really a lot that we didn't like about the car. And one thing I'll say was, the car doesn't really have a lot to differentiate it from the premium model. So there was only a handful of items which differs this from the premium model. So you're really paying, I think, just for that extra motor and the extra performance of this car. However, we still had a couple of other cars that we wanted to look at before we made our final decision. So a couple of days later, I popped into the Volvo dealer to test drive the Volvo EX40 small to mid-sized SUV, and I was immediately blown away by the quality of this car as well. So this was equally as impressive as the Sealion 7, however unfortunately the price was not. So brand new, it was over $90,000 drive away, and even with a promotion that Volvo were doing, it was still high $80,000. So we immediately ruled it off the list simply because of the price, as much as I liked it. Another car I was keen to try was the Subaru Solterra. Now, having been a previous owner of Subarus, which I do like, and I love their off-road performance, I was keen to get into one even though I hadn't heard good things about it. There was a new model coming out though, so we managed to get into a test drive for the touring model. Immediately we just couldn't believe the price of it though, over $80,000 drive away, and I think most of that price is probably paying for the all-wheel drive system, which is very good on these cars. I have watched a few videos on them. It's also a very spacious car, reasonably comfortable. However, that's where the good points end. So, just like many other of the cars that we didn't like, the software left a lot to be desired. The touchscreen, some of the features, some of the safety features, like an annoying reversing chime, and just other little bits and pieces like the odd-shaped steering wheel, the awkward dash cluster, sort of left us a bit bewildered. So there was no real way this was going to make our list of cars that we would even consider, which is a bit of a shame because I think Subaru have made really good cars, and I think this car seems to be the result of the partnership with Toyota, and I'm not a real Toyota fan. I think they're one of the most overrated brands in the world with their cars. Ultimately, it was pretty easy to remove the Solterra off our list. And then we were back at Volvo, so I noticed there was some demo models of the C40 and the XC40 for sale at Volvo Cars in Perth, where I did the first test drive, and they were cheaper than the new models, but would they be cheap enough for me to consider buying it? So we drove the XC40, this time my wife was with me, and it was good for both of us to be in the car, and we both loved the car, and once again we really struggled to find too much wrong with the car, just like with that C-Line 7 Performance. So it has a 79 kilowatt hour usable battery, so just slightly smaller than the C-Line 7. It is a bit of a smaller car than the C-Line 7 Performance. However, the software on it was also excellent, very, integrated very well. The thing that impressed us most, I guess, about this car though, was the quality. So the build quality was exceptional on it. So all that remained was, would the price be low enough for me to even consider this car, given that the C-Line 7 Performance, you just get so much more value for the car, and the price is really just above 70,000 drive away, whereas this car was still close to $80,000. Now, before I reveal the winner, so to speak, of the car that we chose, just wanted to mention that links to all the car reviews will be in the description, so you can go ahead and have a look if any of those cars interest you. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean you might not. I always say choose the car that fits your purpose. There'll always be likes and dislikes, and certainly things which I like may not be what you want in a car, and vice versa. So, choose a car that's fit for purpose. That's what I always say. Don't just go with a car because it's popular or it's got one or two features that you like. It really has to be the whole package, and there has to be deal breakers. You'll have to know what those deal breakers are before you choose. And of course, we'll let you know the reasons why we made our decision and our choice. Okay, we can reveal that the car we chose was a demo model Volvo XC40 Recharge Twin. Now, we had a few reasons for doing this. One thing was definitely the non-intrusive safety systems, which is a big thing for me. So things like lane keeping can be turned off permanently, and it's just not loud, the noises. It's not a bingy bongy car, and some of those things really got my goad when we were test driving vehicles. So that's one thing. The service was also exceptional. It was really streets ahead of BYD, and the build quality is probably a little bit better, not by much, but we'll see how it goes. It's my first Volvo, and like the BYD was my first BYD. There's some quirky features I really like too, but I'll save them for when I do my first review on the car. Now, they even chucked in free servicing for the first 5 years. Warranty is 5 years and 8 years for the battery, so pretty much industry standard. And unfortunately for BYD, I couldn't even get a tow bar, not even aftermarket. Now I'm sure that's not far away, and you've already heard about the Service Woes, which I'll go into a little bit more of. Price-wise, I can say we only paid a few $1,000s more on our budget, which was originally around that 72,000, which was, drive away for the performance model. So we didn't sort of go in there expecting to get a deal. I didn't go to Perth specifically for it, but they did come back and they really looked after us price-wise. Now I touched on the service at BYD just before that. So I didn't have a lot of good experience at any of the branches I went to. They just had no staff. They seemed somewhat disinterested as well. Probably the best of the branches was the one there in Netherlands. So that was probably the best out of a bad lot. So I'm not sure why BYD can't get their service together. I mean, they're no longer the new kids on the block. They've been here for a few years. And if anything, the service has gone backwards since, I bought my car in 23. Now, for those of you who are interested, yes, we did get a tow bar installed. We had a Volvo one done, mainly for convenience reasons, but they also did look after us on price too and discounted it for us, which was good. I did have some issues with that, but I'll go into that in another episode. But at least I've got a tow bar, you can see here. And we also had window tinting done on the car as well. Didn't get any hardwired dash cams, but I am going to do that at a later date. In the meantime, I'm just using my trusty Garmin ones, which I had from the Atto 3. And my apologies, I've got a bit of a cold, so if my voice sounds a little bit croaky, that's because my lovely wife gave me the one that she had. So I've been a little bit crook. Now, on the screen here at the moment, you can see the Volvo EX40. Now, the Volvo service is so good. When I had some issues with my car, because when I bought it, I just mentioned before about the tow bar. I won't go into it fully, but they actually gave me a rather expensive car to actually take back to Kalgoorlie while my car was getting fixed in Perth. And it's just an example of the great service that I've had from Volvo. Now we'll put all that aside for the moment and go back to BYD. So what's coming up in Down Under EV Adventures? Well, unfortunately, my wife has some issues with her car. What's going on with it? We're going to have a look at that in the next episode. And also I'll give you an update on my solar and battery system, which should be installed very soon. But that's it for the journey to my new EV. And I'm hoping to keep this car for a few years now. So I didn't expect myself to end up with the Volvo. I thought I might end up with the Sealion as well. But hey, you never know. I'm sure I'm still going to buy plenty of cars before I shuffle off this mortal coil. Alright, but that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me, really appreciate it. And as usual, please take care on the roads out there. And we'll see you very soon with more on Down Under EV Adventures. Bye for now.